Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Wandering Tavern. I am your host, Clayton. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Caesar,
Yo,
and we are returning for Chapter 4 of Lilly Pete's um, adventure in writing, I suppose we could call it that.
yeah,
An adventure in testing my patience,
mm,
pretty much, is what I would call this.
yeah. It's definitely an interesting series to say the least.
Absolutely.
All right,
So,
so last time, Lily's OC, Darth Amorosa, would be, or at first he was just kind of on the sideline to the plot of the Force Awakens, just kind of influencing little events like rescuing Finn and Poe. But now in the last chapter, she's straight up in the middle of the plot. It's as if Lily is inserting herself into the story and saying, how can I influence the events?" And so the and so we have that chase scene from the beginning of the Force Awakens, but now Lily and her OC is also taking part in it. And then both of their ships get boarded by that large ship that Han and Chewbacca had.
yep. And then, so interestingly enough, I was actually scrolling through our videos, and currently, the last chapter we read of this is actually in third place for the most views we've gotten on a video.
Yeah, not sure how that happened.
I don't know either,
I
but
know.
thank you all. We very much appreciate it.
Yeah, I
The other
know.
one it's in competition with is one of our really, really old ones, and then 100 Stupid Writing Tips, which has 178, and then the our last episode, which had 112.
Yeah, taking the piss out of Lily Orchard gets us a lot of views.
Apparently. Yeah. But let's get going here. Because we have a lot to get through. On. There we go. I knew it was an F key. So, in order to escape the pointless bounty hunter scene from The Force Awakens, which I can say this about Lily, she makes cuts when she needs to from the original content. Give her that. She at the very least recognizes when The Force Awakens was being stupid. But now we have of Aliana or OC, we have OC and Rey on the ship together, presumably for a period of time consisting of at least 3 days. I think was the time it would take to get them to Maz Kanata's cantina, if I'm right from the last chapter. So let's enjoy the cringe, shall we?
Yes, let's.
The Fury was an amazing ship, one of the biggest ships Rey had ever seen. She hadn't had the opportunity to really take in just how large it was. This is the last time she'd been here, but already she was crunching the numbers of salvage that could be held inside the craft. She thought the Fury was a freighter like the Falcon, but she was wrong. It was a warship that Aliana, or more likely her family before, had converted into a mobile home. She could easily discern what was a modification and what was standard issue. Much of the amenities, such as the large refresher and dining area, were things that had been added recently. Even the crew quarters had been converted into 2 small bedrooms, one of which she had laid the few things she'd taken with her from Jakku. So, did she basically just turn this ship into a like an RV?
Yes.
This warship into an RV.
So
Okay.
how big is the Fury in like KOTOR?
Um the Rogue Shadow has enough. The Fury in the MMO, which is what you're given if you go with the Imperial side, is large enough for yourself and I believe 5 other companions. Nah, nah.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
it's large enough for yourself and 4 or 5 other companions.
okay. So it's not like a standard fighter jet or anything
No,
like that.
no, it's fairly large, but you're not thinking of, oh, this is a ship with ample room. Like when you get on the ship, it's very clear. Like this isn't for space. Everything has its place, and like if you've ever been actually on even a boat, oot, there's storage pretty much everywhere, but it's by necessity more so than anything else. Well, think of ships as um like Japanese apartments. You know how they have basically storage everywhere, but no, no, no. They have storage everywhere and they're super compact and practical. That kind of thing. Like that would be what you would expect to find in most ships, unless they're very very luxurious cruise liners. But the reason those luxurious cruise liners are, luxurious is because they don't move very quickly and they're not intended to move in combat. Like you wouldn't expect a star destroyer to have the largest, like a dining area and a large refresher. You'd expect them to have like a cafeteria that's probably takes up a decent chunk of the ship, but really isn't that big, and bathrooms to be, if not entirely set, if not, like are usually not an entirely separate room, not necessarily being an entirely separate room, but being just cordoned off with like a curtain or something. Like this is a ship of war, and the maneuverability she would need to maintain, you know, and have these, bonus rooms is a little hard to believe. The first day had been consumed by Ray exploring the ship, between hyperspace corrections and finding all the little nooks and crannies she could. She even searched through the cargo hold, through several crates and a large cabinet that had been sealed with identification logs. Oh, though several crates and a large cabinet had been sealed with ID logs. Okay. I was waiting for my brain to figure out what that was. Eliana allowed the bout of curiosity without issue. She had no qualms with Ray exploring the ship, as whatever she didn't need to see was safely locked away, and most of everything else was acceptable homey design. In all honesty, it was rather adorable seeing Ray examine and subsequently gush over so much of the ship. It wasn't often she had a guest that was overflowing with so much peppy optimism, at least not optimism that wasn't synthesized like 2V. Having Ray aboard the Fury was a nice change of pace. Okay. There's just one thing I don't understand, Ray said as she took a bite of polystarch that she raided from the pantry. And what would that be? How did you manage to put all these modifications on your ship when you couldn't fix your own hyperdrive? Like, okay, I guess for the purposes of expositing how the hell her ship looks like this, Lily felt the need to have Ray he ask this question that makes her look like she can't put two and two together. Like, she asked me to fix her hyperdrive, and yet this ship seems to be modified by external force by everyone else. Oh, she must have paid to have it modified. That took me 2 seconds to conclude. Ray, meanwhile, has to ask a whole last question for it.
And not even necessarily paid. Didn't it say earlier that her family was the one who renovated it?
Yeah. My ancestors put most of them in, others I hired actual mechanics to install. So you can travel anywhere
My
you.
ancestors.
Yeah.
Hey, come on, Ray. Let's have a drink out of my 4,000-year-old refrigerator.
So you can travel anywhere you want and just pay anyone to do what you need done to your ship? How rich are you? Oh, I forgot. So this is just all set up for this stupid joke.
Oh no.
Like whoa there. Get to know a girl a little better before you start asking her net worth.
Cue the cricket chirping.
I was gonna do like the hollow 80s laugh track.
That works too.
Ray put on a slightly embarrassed expression. I'm sorry, it's just I can't help but be curious. In the short time we've known each other, you've shown to be one of the most peculiar women I've ever met. Okay. I'm not the only freelancer out there. We get by pretty well, and I know where to go to find valuable bartering tools when I need them. You don't see many freelancers on Jakku, who Ray counters, taking another bite for dinner. Wouldn't most of that work be closer to the core? I try not to go near the core. Why not? Time appeared to slow down for Eliana as she racked her brain for a swift, believable response. Piecing together an excuse, she unclipped her lightsaber from her belt and put it on the table. This thing, sadly. You go near the core world with one of these on your hip, and everyone in the grandmother thinks you're a Jedi and starts pleading for your help. Without charge, I might add. I thought she was supposed to be a good person. Like, of course. Of course, Joe Crazy. She wouldn't be a raging lefty lunatic if she didn't scream at the rich while making oodles of buckets of money herself. Like, okay, so I thought she was supposed to be a good person. Isn't, helping people something good people do?
I guess Lily's trying
I
to
can,
go for the reclusive anti-hero.
yeah. Ray couldn't help but smile at that. You don't seem to me like the kind of woman who would mind charity work.
I'm a Sith, so I'm misunderstood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a
well,
Sith. Help. I help people when it's I help people, but I also have good work-life balance. I'm capable of saying no.
yeah. Knowing that video that we responded to from Lily, she's definitely gonna try to go for the whole Sith are misunderstood kind of shit.
Mm,
We'll just ignore the 4,000 years worth of warfare against the Sith.
Helping people isn't is a Sith aspect, according to Lilly. Very true. Usually not, but when it's nonstop, you have to draw the line somewhere. I still need to make a living, you know. Have you thought of not keeping the lightsaber at your belt on your belt? Well, Ray asked with a shrug. Eliana bristled hard at the remark, but tried her best to bury it. As far as Ray knew, it was a piece of junk used to intimidate people and had no value. She thought that way because that was what Eliana had told her. Taking a slow breath, shook her head. It's too good of a deterrent to people to keep causing trouble. Since I spent most of my time in the Outer Rim and the unknown regions, it's best I keep it. Okay. So the unknown regions. I'm about to drop some Star Wars lore upon y'all. The unknown regions are basically the left side of the galaxy viewed from a map, and nobody really knows what's over there. And what we do know is it is a home of some of the most like it's basically like going into the deep ocean. You know, you never know what you're going to find, and what you find there is probably deadly. The fact that this woman would just be like, "Oh, I frequently go into the unknown regions with its unstable hyperlanes and monsters that can and do jump into hyperspace and kill people." And then there's a literal force devouring god on a couple of those planets. This is all, of course, before Disney expunged them. But, you know, the unknown regions were an area of space when not many people went because, you know, bad things exist there. The Yuuzhan Vong, that's where they was where they that was where they originated. They were extragalactic, but they have their first like colony planets are in the unknown regions. The unknown regions, her interest peaked. What are those like? Oh, quite varied from planet to planet. Worlds untouched by the cultural influence of the Republic and the Imperial Remnant have a vast array of cultures. Yeah. The problem is getting there. I've heard people say it's dangerous out there. Is that true? About as dangerous as any uncharted region of space is. You go in blind without astrogation charts or hyperspace routes. So if you aren't careful, you end up in an ion storm or asteroid belt. You have to plot your route slowly. If you just jump to a planet, you risk slamming into a moon that you didn't see in the way. Um there are literal ghosts that haunt the hyperlanes in the unknown regions that kill people in their ships. Like they're called like hyper banshees or something. But yeah, they're not nice people. You don't go into the unknown regions as if it's just a friendly jaunt. You go into the unknown regions because you don't have a choice. Wow, that sounds like it could take a while. Indeed. Best not to go into the unknown regions if you're not prepared to be there for a long time. So where does Takodana fall in the star charts? It's closer to the core worlds, but only just. It's honestly in post Old Republic days, there aren't many safe places for criminals near the core, and that isn't the deep recesses of Coruscant. I thought you said you were a mercenary. Why go to a criminal hideout? Tricksters sit with others in peace because they know there's no point in trying to outsmart a trickster. Or Aliana explained. Smugglers' dens and pirate havens like Takanda are good places to disappear to be in relative peace, especially with Maz running the place.
Why wouldn't a trickster try to outsmart another trickster? Aren't they typically out for themselves?
Yeah, but and like yes, there would be almost every point uh in tricksters outsmarting one another. And yes, I am aware Riva has made it sure Luke could never fit in episode 4 by traumatizing him as a small child.
Oh Lord, I've I guess to clear up a misconception from the last video. No, the Grand Inquisitor does not actually die. It just looked like he did. He survived getting stabbed because reasons, and then Reva got stabbed by Vader and also survived because reasons.
Yeah, because we know Vader's not one to confirm a kill.
Yeah, it's a so I watched a little bit of the fight between Obi-Wan and Vader at the end, and apparently there's I haven't seen this part yet, but apparently there's a part where he cuts off half of Vader's mask, revealing his face.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, I mean, that would be cool and all if Rebels didn't already do it first.
Oh, bro, they also ripped off Rebels where Darth Maul comes to Kenobi at the end.
Yeah, yeah, in Rebels it was cool when Ahsoka cut off Vader's mask, and there was like a very brief second where it almost looked like he was trying to struggle between his good and evil half, only for the evil half to overcome it again. But now because of Kenobi, that seems or that it just feels redundant.
Yeah, and honestly, Ahsoka should have been left alone. Like she should have died in Rebels. It was okay. Well, she's Riva. She's just that good, Legacy. Like you have to remember, she's just that good.
All right, here's another thing about Obi-Wan and Rebels for that matter. So, in the first episode, when the Inquisitors show up, there's three of them, even though they're only hunting for one single Jedi. If it's been a long time since I've watched Rebels, but if I remember correctly, we only ever saw the Grand Inquisitor for the first season. He was the one who pursued Ezra and Kanan, and then after he died at the end of the first season, from then on there would be three Inquisitors pursuing the main characters because it made sense. The Grand Inquisitor got killed by two Jedi, so it's only natural to start sending more in.
I don't know. I guess it seems odd that the Grand Inquisitor would take such a personal interest in those two, but I guess they needed a villain that wasn't Darth Vader, so we just used the Grand Inquisitor. And we know that this Maz can help us. Han Solo certainly thinks so. He knew Luke better than anyone else, save Princess Leia. If he thinks he can help, he has my vote of confidence. Yes, I do too. So does everybody else. Like if you've played or read the Force Unleashed novels and books, like it's so good. It's such a good story. And such a self-contained one really too. Like the idea that Vader hunting down the last of the Jedi runs into a small child, sees, "Oh, hello. This is an opportunity. I will raise this child to be my apprentice and will kill my master." Also, yes. Ray nodded, a wide smile suddenly plastered on her face. I still can't believe we got to meet the Han Solo. I mean, that the man's a legend. A crusty legend. Still a legend. Um, this is like someone meeting George Washington and saying, "Oh, he's just a crusty legend."
I mean, lefties would say that about Washington.
Hello, Horned Rabbit.
Good early
Like,
afternoon.
it's like being, it's like seeing someone in the twilight days of their career, or who has been a major influence on whatever, on like the your chosen vocation in life, and then having someone just be like, "Oh, he's just old." Like, your point being, he's still the guy that basically wrote the book on how to do half this shit. There's no qualities to be admired there. Like, I mean, he was right alongside Luke Skywalker taking down the Galactic Empire. Wait, why does Rey know this? Rey only knew him as a smuggler in the movie. I guess we're
Th-
just ignoring that.
Yeah,
Which,
this is
you know,
Lily rewriting the sequel trilogy.
that's true. You know what? I'll accept that because that was just the dumbest shit. Like, the smuggler? Er, Girl, like, what planet do you reside on that would only tell you of Han Solo, the smuggler, and not, Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Luke Skywalker, the people that literally killed the Emperor and destroyed the two Death Stars. There's a giant planet-killing weapon.
Yeah, it's interesting how I guess for a lot of OT fanboys that Han is best remembered as a smuggler, even though he was only a smuggler in the first movie. The other two movies, he was a rebel fighter.
Hold on, don't worry, Joe Crazy. We're about to drag the rest of the sequels down, the prequels down. The Jesus. All right, we're about to drag the rest of the OT down with her. I mean, they didn't do that good of a job. Otherwise, the First Order wouldn't be around. Ileana scoffed, taking a bite of her dinner for the first time since they sat down. My mother was incensed when the Republic signed the treaty with the Empire. She wanted to hunt them down to the last stormtrooper.
Your mother sounds like a very irrational woman, very
Yeah,
emotionally driven.
yeah. But here, let's talk about how these people risk their lives over and over again and pla- to destroy things that can kill a planet, is
Like
this thing that can kill planet, and they killed the Emperor, and rebuilt the Republic, and you're just like, oh, they didn't do that good a job because the ideology because remnants still survived and the First Order is
oh
here now.
no. Yeah, that's the thing. It's the thing about warfare is that you're supposed to beat your opponents into submission. You don't actually straight up wipe them out.
Very true, Joe. It is almost just as if the First Order was pulled out of someone's ass. Instead of having, like, oh, I don't know, a high ranking Moff, or, someone from the Empire that could have come back during that time, him running Imperial intelligence. Like, there were a lot of characters from the days of the Empire, or in the EU, that could have happily taken over from who could have happily taken over in Palpatine's stead. Instead, we got Palpatine again, who somehow survived exploding twice. The man survived 2 explosions, drifted in space for an unknown period of time, presumably was rescued by some kind of contingency he had, was
Yeah.
taken to Exegol and was basically put into stasis for basically put into stasis is because his body was so horrifyingly damaged.
Oh, okay. I believe the explanation they finally gave was that Palpatine did a sort of essence transfer into a clone body, like in Dark Empire. But the movie never explains that. It's just pulling shit out of your ass in order to cover up a plot hole you made.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Actually, if I remember correctly, I don't know if it's the official Star Wars Twitter or I think it was some kind of official Twitter for that's Star Wars related. Like they show the scene where Vader throws Palpatine off the bridge, and then they say that Palpatine knew this was going to happen. This is all according to his plan. It's like the biggest fucking ass pull. It's a,
what have? Oh no, my my apprentice betrayed me. My apprentice betrayed me, and and threw me in a pit. All according to Keikaku. Ah, yes, Lord Vader. I knew you would. I knew of your betrayal. Well, before this happened, but this was all according to my plan. You see, Light Yagami is jealous of the Emperor right now.
okay, I found it. I'll post it in the Discord.
You have a mother? Had? Ray's eyes widened suddenly, feeling foolish. Oh, I'm sorry. What happened? I'm not going to talk about it.
All right, I just sent it.
Palpatine always knew who Darth Vader would betray him, and right before he did in Return of the Jedi, he called on the dark power of the Force to thrust his consciousness far, far away into a secret place he had been preparing. That may be the biggest ass pull I've ever seen. Like, yeah, exactly. We have no books to go off of. Whose fault is that, Kathleen? You know, we certainly didn't tell you no, you couldn't do your own original stories and ignore the EU. Oh, you did that yourselves. We were hoping you would adapt the EU because a lot of the EU content is really, really good. But you decided, hey, we're just going to reinvent the wheel here. Like, okay, but you're just going to ignore all these really cool stories and all these really, really awesome characters with great motivations and brilliant writing and oh right, they came before. They're from the before times when women didn't have rights and we still rode horses to work.
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with they wanted the canon to start revolving around Dave Filoni's writing, since his writing would contradict a lot of the other EU material.
Of course they did. Okay, understandable. They sat in silence, the tone much colder than it was a moment ago. It's my family, the people I'm waiting for back on Jakku. Ooh. Eliana nodded her head. I figured as much. Thank God. At least someone has a brain in this. At least someone has a brain in this entire fake. Like so far, Aliana has proved mostly to have knowledge based upon entirely meta circumstance. It's Everyone else is only as dumb as they need to be in their particular scene. Can't imagine you'd voluntarily stay on that sand pit for anyone else. Where are they off to? I don't know. How long have you been waiting for them? 12 years. Wait. They left me on the planet when I was very little, didn't tell me where they were going or when they would be back.
Wait, how old is Ray supposed to be?
I don't know.
Because physically speaking, she looks like she's 30, and the
I always
child Ray,
thought late 20s.
yeah, and the child Ray looked like she was probably no older than 8, like
Yeah.
maybe 9 at the oldest.
Oh my god, Ray, I'm so sorry. Ray put on a Yeah.
Actually, the comics do actually the comics did actually introduce the idea of Exegol. I think it was in the Darth Vader comics. Like Palpatine actually does take Vader to Exegol, so Vader knows about like his little cloning program, it then fills in a plot hole
What?
for Rise of Skywalker, but then it creates another plot hole for Return of the Jedi because as Vader's dying, he's going to be telling Luke, "Oh, hey, the Emperor's not dead yet. He's on this planet called Exegol. Go take care of that right away."
Also, yes, but like, worse still, what the fuck did you do to Anakin Skywalker's legacy, you fucking peanuts? Like, this man came back as a Force ghost. He transcended the physical plane and became a Force spirit. And your asses were just like, nah, he's not gonna tell anybody anything else. He's not gonna tell. He's not gonna tell on his former master, the guy who fucked his life up. You know, the guy who literally put him in the suit to basically punish him for failing to kill Obi-Wan. Like, it. Hold on. So I'm trying to think genuinely. Genuinely, is there a character from either the prequels or the sequel or the OT that has not been ruined yet by Disney?
Uh,
Boba Fett's done. They fucked with him. Um, Luke's gone. Leia's dead.
I think Chewbacca and Lando were okay at best.
Eh. Chewbacca has been reduced to a chauffeur, and Lando appears in one movie for all what I think is collectively like 5 minutes. So I think he's out. Oh no, because Solo exists. So
Oh,
Lando
oh
got
God,
ruined.
yes, he fucks a
Yeah,
robot.
Lando got ruined by Lando got ruined by his sex toy. Um,
Oh God, I can't believe I
Qui-Gon
forgot
Jinn
about
is in Kenobi, so
I
I
mean,
guess that
as long as he's still in character, then I guess it's fine.
Obi-Wan is ruined by his own series. Um,
I don't know. Has the High Republic fucked up Yoda yet?
not to my knowledge. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. They had, but they haven't done it yet.
Maybe
So
Windu.
so basically it seems like everything Disney Star Wars touches is corrupted beyond all recognition. Somehow, by the law of reverses, if for whatever reason, beyond understanding, Disney decides, hey, you know that character in the first movie in the Phantom Menace that everybody hated? It, what was his name? He was some kind of alien. right? Like, oh, Jar Jar. Yeah, we should make a series about him. Somehow that will be the best thing to come out of Disney Star Wars. It will somehow, miraculously, through means beyond comprehension to us mere mortals, will be like the best Star Wars series ever. Because you're starting at rock bottom. You cannot do worse than Jar Jar Binks in terms of terrible characters that were spawned prior to Disney's ownership of Star Wars. I don't disagree with Legacy. All right. What are you sorry for? I'm sure they'll explain everything to me if when they get back. When they get back. Okay, so you've made Rey smart enough to, you know, be somewhat self-aware of her situation, and yet not smart enough to be like, oh, they're just not coming back. Aeliana's mouth formed a thin line. She internally debated if she could tell Rey that her parents weren't coming back, and she should make peace with that. Clinging to false hope like that, this wasn't healthy. Still, Rey was especially stubborn. She had to be if she wanted to survive on Jakku of all the places. Even Aeliana made her Even if Aeliana made her case calmly and sympathetically as she could, it wasn't guaranteed that Rey wouldn't plug her. What? It wasn't guaranteed that Rey would plug. Okay, an editor, like just 2 seconds, a redraft, rereading this would have fixed this one sentence. And it's such a common complaint throughout this entire fic. I think we've run into something like this in every chapter, where it's just like rereading through it, you would have caught this and fixed it, and it wouldn't look like off. It wouldn't be this weird like stop in the story. There was a time and place for this sort of thing, and the remaining 5 days they had left cooped on the ship may not have been it. Well, contact me when they get back. I don't care how good an excuse they have for leaving a child on a desert planet. I'm reading them the riot act. Oh, look, she cares. Look, everyone, Aeliana's got a heart of gold. Well, she cares. That response got a soft laugh from Rey. Aeliana took another bite of her polystarch and smiled as the tension in the room had lifted.
What the fuck is a riot act?
It's basically a lecture.
Oh, okay. I thought I was gonna say it was like some kind of law that allows you to riot.
No. It's a weird term to pop up in a Star Wars fic, though.
Well, remember, Lily Orchard has the mind of a 13-year-old girl.
Mm, mm, very true. She quietly pondered telling Rey about her mother. She'd certainly earned the courtesy after telling her who she was waiting for on Jakku. And it's not like any harm would be done as long as she didn't name names. All right, well, I guess I can tell you about mine. My mother was murdered by a Jedi Master on Corellia about 9 years ago. A Jedi? Why? He must have thought she was a threat of some kind. It's hard to catch all the details over the sound of screaming and swinging lightsabers. Lightsabers? Plural? Who else was there? The Jedi's Padawan attacked her 2-on-1 before coming after me. She rolled up her sleeve to show Rey a patch of rough, uneven skin running up her upper arm. See that? I took the Padawan's lightsaber tip to the arm.
Let me guess, it's Kylo.
Uh, I would be willing to bet yes. Yes, it would be Kylo, because it has to be. Okay. So she took so the lightsaber tip presumably got caught her arm on the way up. Um hmm. I mean, Bacta is a thing, so I guess she's not rich enough to afford Bacta and a Bacta injection. But okay. I can't believe it. I mean, it's not like I think you're lying or anything. I just always thought the Jedi were supposed to be guardians of peace. Why would they attack you or your mother? I don't know. I didn't stick around to find out. I just got on the Fury and ran for my life. I don't even know what they did to my mother's body after that. Another lie. She knew exactly what they'd done. They burned her mother as if she were garbage. Okay.
Or like a funeral.
Yeah.
They usually Jedi burn their dead.
Mhm. They do. They do burn their dead.
So was there ever an explanation for why some Jedi disappear when they die, and some just stay physical?
Those that are able to transcend the physical plane and become force spirits.
Yeah, but Qui Gon could do it, but his body was still burned.
Yeah, he was the first one to do it. Um, and you probably have to be in a state of and a certain like oneness with the force. I'm theory crafting here. This is all absolutely speculation. I have no sources to back this up. Nobody knows really. It's one of those things that just is what it is.
I mean, I do like your theory because Obi-Wan was extremely relaxed when he let
Yeah,
Vader kill
exactly.
him.
Like you kind of have to be at that point of oneness with the force. Like you have to accept your death. I think Qui-Gon was not expecting to fall at that point.
Yeah, plus he was also trying to convince Obi-Wan to train Anakin. So Qui-Gon probably had a little bit of concern when he was dying.
I mean, not according to Lily, because remember, Joe, the Sith are can be good. Sith can be good people, well, that do good things for their planet and others,
Yes, that's
or
a
they just happen to use the dark side of the Force.
yes, a true Sith would act a true Sith cares about helping a cause. Yeah, Palpatine, Darth Bane, Darth Plagueis, pretty much every Darth you can think of, they were not real Sith because they didn't use the dark side the right way.
I'm sorry. I can't imagine what it was like to go through that. Okay, thank you, she replied softly. It's not often I get to talk to people about this who don't immediately assume I'm lying. Ray felt a pang of sympathy for her, as much as she knew deep down in her heart that her parents weren't coming back. Okay, so she does know. Then why'd she stay?
I guess coping.
Fair enough. She knew they were out there somewhere, and if they weren't, she was blissfully. Excuse me, I had to yawn very suddenly. For her. As much as she knew deep down in her heart that her parents weren't coming back, she knew they were out there somewhere. And if they weren't, she was blissfully ignorant of that fact. So Ray is either okay, whose head are we in right now? Like are we in Ray's head now? Cuz we got like Yes, Joe, I think that's what she's doing. But worse is we have that perspective shift again. Like at one moment, it feels like we're in Eliana's head. We're reading her thoughts and inner monologue, and suddenly Ray is feeling pangs of sympathy. She knows Ray is feeling pangs of sympathy for her. Not only did Eliana know her mother was dead, she watched it happen and still didn't know why. Eliana felt her face grow red from Ray's continued contact and withdrew her hands, coughing discreetly. In that moment, she felt a surge of confidence rise within her. Ray, believing her, was a comforting reassurance. Maybe she could tell her. There's something I did want to tell. I did want to tell you actually. Excuse me, Miss Beniko. U2V said as he came waddling into the room. But we are arriving at the Resistance safe house.
You mean Maz's Cantina?
I guess. I don't know.
I don't know if I'd call that a safe house because the movie showed that there were First Order sympathizers there.
I think this is an actual safe house. I think they mentioned in the last chapter that they were stopping here for some reason. But again, what a how very cliche. Like, oh, I'm gonna admit the truth. I'm gonna tell the truth and admit everything. And now I get the excuse of I tried to tell you. I was trying to tell you. So at some point, the truth was going to come out. Aliana is going to say, like, I tried to tell you, but we kept getting interrupted or the timing never seemed right. And then Ray's going to be mad and storm off. That's what's going to happen. That's how she's going to get captured by Kylo. Almost guaranteed in the next couple chapters, when we finally do reach Maz's Cantina and that whole event happens, that's why Ray's gonna run off because Aliana will have lied to her. I know it's like watching two planks of wood seduce each other. Joe. Aliana cursed the droid's timing and pulled her lightsaber off the table, hooking it back to her belt, and standing up from her seat. All right, get the pilot ready. I want to be in and out as quickly as possible. If that is the case, perhaps we can simply lower the docking ramp and toss him into the safe house. We need to exhibit a little more decorum than that, 2V. Aliana said, rolling her eyes as she walked toward the med bay. Med bay, apparently? Okay, med bay. Look. What? Okay, what a weird thing for the droid to say. Like, it's a protocol droid. It's basically a butler droid. Why would it do this? Why would it suggest this? Ray braced herself as 2V brought the ship out of hyperspace. She looked over to see Aliana pushing an unconscious man and out on a roller. Who is that? Not sure. I found him in some wreckage on Jakku,
Oh
and he was
shit!
too banged up
I
to tell me
forgot she
anything.
has Poe with him.
Yeah, I forgot she had Poe with her too. At least she's figured out that plot hole. Like, Poe apparently woke up in the desert and was able to radio for help, I guess, for a pickup on Jakku. Ooh, at least now we have an explanation as to why he's going to be in the movie later. Yes, but he hasn't done anything yet, Legacy. He's been at the very beginning of the film of the fic, and now he is re-entered unconscious. Basically, he spent most of this season in a coma. Ray looked outside to see a mobile station on a set drift course. Excuse me. Bray looked outside to see a mobile station on a set drift course around the empty space. It was so far off the hyperspace route that it was nearly impossible to find through conventional means. The station looked to be about 5 times the size of the Fury and was certainly intended for quick stops and temporary hideaways. As her first taste of the Resistance, it was quite impressive. Okay, first, a Resistance safe house is safe because it's hard to detect. As in, you would want if you were a covert resistance movement, your safe houses you would want your safe houses to be in areas that are frequented by other people, making it more and more making it entirely plausible, well, and in fact likely, that you stopped at this planet to refuel, to grab supplies, to just have some fun and hang out, something akin to that. Having a safe house that is intentionally out of the way is somewhat obvious because, people will actually go and look for it. They'll check, like, your enemies will tend to check for that. They'll check your travel log, they'll check, like, tracking data, that sort of thing. Also, yes, they're meeting with the resistance already. Which sort of blows the whole why do we have to go to Maz at all? Because the reason they go to Maz in the movie is because Maz knows where the resistance base is. But I guess we have another. I guess again the whole point she's keeping the Maz scene in is because Maz is because because Maz is played by, you know, a strong female character, a strong female woman of color, and then the other reason I assure you is to have like the cheap drama of Rey finding out Aliana's a Sith and running off into the woods to be captured by Kylo. Aliana brought the ship to dock with the station, then immediately left the controls to help 2B guide the stretcher with the pilot on it to the docking port. She stopped as 2B came out of the medbay and turned back to Rey. Want to go inside and look around? Exactly. Because it makes so much sense for them to have done that. Rey couldn't deny the idea seemed tantalizing. The thought of meeting other members of the Resistance was too good to pass up. Sure, she said, trying to sound casual. She followed the group to the ship's airlock. The hissing of pressurization filled their ears before the doors opened. They made their way down a small walkway before another set of doors opened before them. On the other side were a troop of armed guards that had not pointed their blasters at the group, but appeared to be ready to take action if they proved hostile. Okay. This ship approached you without communication, presumably, pulls up, and you just let it dock. And instead of, having the armed guards ready to go, having their blasters up and pointing them, like in the ready position, because you don't know what's coming off that unknown ship. You're just having them there looking intimidating. Good for you. In the middle of that group was a tall, older woman. Oh, God.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, you
Is this
just
who
have the
I
same.
mm, does she have purple hair?
I don't know. She hasn't described her hair color, but I would be willing to bet. Your vessel has the look of a first order ship, she said with a calm, even tone. We almost didn't give you docking clearance. I appreciate that you did. I recovered a pilot from Jakku. I'm pretty sure he's one of yours. May I bring him aboard? Okay, why is this conversation happening in person? If I'm in charge of this safe house and I barely gave this person docking clearance, they ain't coming inside until I'm absolutely 100% certain that they're not going to attempt anything. Like, oh look, it's a video call. Like, oh, they're in the airlock, so if they have hostile intent, we can just vent the air from there and take care of that problem easy easy lemon squeezy. But now I've just let them into the station. I've just let them into the safe house. They now know where it is. So I have to kill them if they prove hostile. I literally can't let them escape. Now I have to hide their ship and hope she doesn't have some form of tracker or transmitter on it. You have this whole scene is just an endless stream of problems purely on the basis that someone was an idiot and let this woman, and nobody radioed her and nobody cleared her prior to that. Nobody asked for any codes, anything like any like access codes, passwords, anything that would indicate you are friendly. The senator the senator nodded and Eliana signaled to 2V to bring the pilot into the station. It only took a glance from the senator to recognize him. This is Poe Dameron. He's one of ours, and known for getting into trouble. Well, at that. We'll take him from here. The soldiers quickly pulled Poe from Eliana's stretcher and placed him on one of their own before rolling down into their med bay. Only 2 guards stayed with the senator in case the group decided not to leave peacefully. Literally facing an unknown, at least to you're facing a potential unknown number of hostiles, and you just leave 2 guards. Whole thing stupid. This whole situation is stupid from like top to bottom. Just the dumbest shit. Eliana watched as the resistance fighter rolled Dameron out of sight before giving the center a slight curtsy. A pleasure to aid the resistance. Before we head out, my friend here wanted to have a look around if that would be all right with you. She was very excited about coming here. The senator glanced back at the guards and then to the lightsaber on Eliana's hip. You have to surrender your weapon before you can enter. Eliana unhooked her lightsaber and handed it to her. Of course, ma'am. The senator took the hilt in her hands, looked it over before nodding to the group. Thank you. Welcome to the safe house. All right. Ray could barely contain her excitement as she stepped further into the station. Yeah, we're just going to let this stranger, who we don't know at all, well, we're just going to let her wander around, take a look. It's fine. I mean, it's not like their business here has been concluded and thus they should probably fuck off. So there's not any sort of trap or they're not hiding a transmitter on them or broadcasting their location. And I don't know, things that would be, you know, levels of suspicion and paranoia that one would expect from an underground resistance. I guess we're just cool with that. Like, even you can't get on, even nowadays, you can't go wherever the fuck, you can't just be like, hey, Air Force, I know you're like a military installation and all, but I'm really curious to see how things work. Can I take a tour Or they're gonna be like, no, what? Like you showed up delivering one of our injured soldiers in a war zone. Like, no, no, we're not gonna just let you in and see so you can see shit. Fuck off. All right, having fun? Eliana asked with amusement. We're in a resistance base, Ray exclaimed with giddiness. We're surrounded by people fighting for freedom in the galaxy. This is a safe house of heroes. Hua.
I know. Ray sounds like she has a personality of like an 11-year-old.
Yeah, it's better than her original personality, but which was, nothing.
Not
But
much to work
still,
with.
Eliana smiled as she watched Ray become so filled to the brim with glee, inspiration, and awe at the sight of so many resistance fighters in one place. It was especially heartwarming to see her get so worked up over rank and file grunts and pilots. Usually, such reverence had been reserved for people wielding lightsabers in the past. You don't have to go back to Jakku. You could join the resistance if they inspire you this much. Ray opened her mouth to respond, but the words died in her throat. Her expression went from unbridled joy to one of conflict. Deep down, she knew there was nothing for her back on Jakku. Joining the resistance seemed like the best opportunity for her. Still, there was this nagging feeling that it would not leave her mind. What if her parents did come back, only to see she wasn't there? As far as she knew, they were on Jakku that very moment. As flimsy and unreasonable as the hope was, she couldn't quite let go of it. I'll wait for my parents to come back. Then I'll join up. They should at least know the kind of trouble I'm getting into. Eliana's expression grew pained as she saw Ray turn around and get back to exploring the station. It hurt to watch Ray convince herself so strongly that she needed to stay on Jakku, but didn't want to upset her. Normally, she wasn't so hesitant to give someone a harsh truth they so desperately needed. But a part of her was desperate to see Ray smile, and when she did, she felt just as happy as Ray looked. Again, it's so fluffy, it's disgusting. Like now, so I compared them to watching two planks of wood attempt to seduce each other. Now they're just crab apples. They approach levels of cringe on that stupid fluffy fruit. All right, if you're sure. Master, I would advise us to return the ship as soon as we can. If we linger too long, the resistance fighters may attempt to vandalize it for its outward appearance. We're staying until Ray has had her fill to be. Make peace with that. Besides, I feel like a group of fighters under these fighters under the leadership of an esteemed general are above such petty vandalism. Ray, meanwhile, was captivated by a droid she found in a corner and knelt down to talk to it. The sight was enough to return the smile to Eliana's face. Ugh. Oh, thank God, we're back to all around me are familiar faces and worn out places. At least this one's better. This was the worst part of the captain's job, reporting to the petulant brat that the supreme leader had decided to put in charge of the entire ship. Kylo Ren had been bad before, but ever since coming back from his rendezvous with the Sith on Jakku, he had become considerably worse. Phasma and Hux couldn't even contain his tantrums, and damage to the ship was at an all-time high. Now he had to make things worse by reporting that the droid had escaped and the entire platoon sent to Jakku had been slain. Worse, they were now harder to track as the entire population of scavengers had made it off in a dozen ships. So it was unknown which ship the droid was hiding on. Damn it. Things that should have been in the movie but weren't And when I realized that, it's disappointing that Lily Pete has found these things and made them better because the rest of this fic is garbage. Is everyone still here? Did I disconnect? Hello?
Nope, you're so good.
Okay. Nevertheless, he'd prefer to face Ren's rage himself and allow the grunts under him to take the fall. My lord, he said nervously as he stepped into Ren's chambers. Rin didn't look at the captain. Instead, he chose to continue facing the podium that held something he obstructed from the captain's sight. Report, Captain, he said through the deep filter of his mask. Captain had attempted to take a discreet, deep breath before he spoke. The droid has escaped the planet. Both it and the traitor are nowhere to be found. Much to his surprise, Rin hadn't immediately began lashing out. Instead, it opted to breathe heavily. It was as if he was attempting to calm himself down. How did the platoon lose to them? The entire platoon had been wiped out. At that time, dozens of freighters had taken flight and fled the planet. We have no way of knowing which one the droid was on. That addition was what did it. In the blink of an eye, Ren's crossguard saber ignited and crackled with unstable power and began slashing against the walls of his own chambers. Yeah, I didn't really like the fact that they had Kylo Ren do this in the movie. It sort of ruined him. It ruined a lot of his intimidation factor. Or when they did that. But I guess the point is like he's supposed to be relatively untrained, so I guess I can let it go, but it's still just how could an entire platoon be wiped? He stopped mid-sentence as he quickly came to the only conclusion possible. Of course, the Sith. He seethed in anger. Not only had the Sith humiliated him personally, but she lost him the droid and the map to Skywalker with no way to attain them. The mission had been a This mission had been a disaster, all thanks to one exiled Sith and her meddling. Ren paced around his quarters as he thought of exactly how he would make her pay for such insolence. Captain, scan every last cubic meter of space around Jakku. I want to know every single ship that has left the planet. I'll tear them apart one by one if I have to. The captain stood straight and saluted towards Ren. Much as it pained him to acknowledge that the brat is his superior, yes, my lord, right away. With that, the captain turned on his heel and walked briskly out of the room. The physical distance he put between himself and Ren did wonders to calm his nerves. Okay, who is this captain? Why are we in his point of view? Why aren't we in Ren's point of view? Like, will this unnamed captain return? Is he going to be a crucial character later on in the fic? Will he save our heroes and betray Ren because he thinks he's a brat? Like, or was this entire scene simply put in here to bash Kylo Ren?
Well, knowing what Lily said in the last video, well, probably.
I know she's out there. No doubt planning how next she'll choose to humiliate me. When I find her, I'll show her the true power of the dark side, as you
W-
would.
Wow, he just made him
The-
sound like a whiny little brat.
yeah, the
I know
charred
she's
rune held.
out there. No doubt planning how next she'll choose to humiliate me. I will find her, and I will show her the true power of the dark side, as you would.
Meanwhile, Vader's ghost is over there, like, bitch, please, I have like 20 times the intimidation factor you got in my little finger. Like, yes, Joe, exactly. Like, the fact that she can recognize the faults in the movies and attempt to correct them only makes it worse when her own writing is so bad surrounding it. It proves she's competent enough to recognize a flaw in a story, but not competent enough in her own writing to actually correct, to prevent falling into the same flaw.
Just like Doug Walker.
Actually, yes, very much. That was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, Ray said happily as she undocked the Fury and followed the corset for Takanda. Thank you so much, Allie. Allie? Eliana asked, tilting her head curiously. A
Oh,
small
no. She's
Ray
got a
felt a
pet
small
name.
flush of red spread over her cheeks as she turned to explain herself. Well,
Just
we're
call her.
friends.
Yeah, just
Oh,
call her Ali Chan while you're at it.
yeah, no kidding.
You're pretty much like anime levels of mushy cringe.
Allie senpai.
Yes.
Well, we're friends, right? I just thought that maybe a cute thing to call my friend. Wow.
Eh,
All she needs is a fucking Desu after that shit. Eliana was silent for a moment before a simple smile spread across her face. Allie, I like it. Never had a nickname before.
Darth Amorosa.
Yeah, no kidding. Great. Allie it is then. Eliana excused herself as she withdrew to her quarters. Once she was certain the door had been sealed, she immediately fell to the floor and whined softly. She tried not to let her crush get out of hand, but the more time she spent with the scavenger, the more attached to her she became.
Oh
And it
God.
had only been half a day since they left Jakku. Now she was looking at 3 more on the flight to Takanda, and she was certain that if she didn't get a handle on herself by then, she would just end up embarrassing herself.
Okay, there's nothing inherently wrong with having a romance subplot, but don't. This is fucking Star Wars. Don't make it so fucking mushy.
It's
That's the kind of shit you put in a YA novel.
Yeah, it's so bad. Like, I've read books and I've read romance specifically, and none of the ones I've ever read have been this cringe, have been this bad with the fluffy emotional dialogue. It happens sometimes, but usually, it's placed in such a way where it's at that point of oh, w- there's something more to this than just a hookup kind of thing. Like we've built character for most of the book by the time this shit starts to happen. Okay.
I mean, this kind of shit belongs in like a very cheesy slice of life novel,
Yes.
not
Very,
an
very, very true.
not an action sci-fi fantasy space opera.
True. Not even the original characters were friends that fast. It took like this is still I think the first third of the movie, so Luke and Han are just talking, and Han's mocking Luke for his faith in the Jedi at this point. This is around that time. So before the Death Star, before they like go through danger and combat and fight and almost die together, or like she looked up from the floor to see several objects around her had suddenly begun to float. Staring wide-eyed for a moment, she soon realized it was her doing this and then focused on putting the objects back down. Right, she said inward to herself. Through passion I gain strength. Surges in emotion means surges in power. That is not what that means. Only in the most literal sense could you interpret it that way. It seemed that the proximity to her crush meant she was at risk of accidentally revealing that she was force sensitive. This proved more than anything that she had to get a hold of herself. Unfortunately, her training did not include any Jedi teachings to ignore or negate emotion, only to channel them for greater power. Okay. Um yes, the Sith teachings do include things for her dealing with emotion, but more so as a more so as yes, channel these for greater power. But you must have control over your emotions, otherwise you'll become a raging emotional beast who won't be able to who won't get the force, who will not tame the force to do your bidding. Like this shit, if she was a real Sith, would never have happened. In fact, the very idea of her potentially developing feelings for Rey would have immediately set alarm bells off on her for her, and she would likely have killed Rey on the outset. Like Darth Zana was, I think, is you know someone someone Lily's trying to sort of pull from here. The thing with Zana is she viewed every other person who wasn't strong as worthless. Like she was like, "All right, well, sex is fun, but I don't care about you or anything. Like, go die." Like she literally, I think in the second Darth Bane novel, she's literally screwing a guy, and when she's literally having sex with this guy, hey, or it's implied she's sleeping with him,
Yeah.
and then she sends him to go die. She doesn't care. Like he is nothing but a tool to her. And then, as another example, Darth Malgus from the Old Republic era had a favorite Twi'lek slave that at the end of his novel, well, he kills because he understands that she is a weakness for him. The Sith don't develop attachments like the Jedi do. The Sith don't develop attachments just as the Jedi don't, but for reasons of someone who is stronger or who is weaker than me can use that person or that thing that I like or that I am passionate about and killed it and get to me through it. It's sort of why Batman doesn't have a wife kind of thing. But Joe Crazy is absolutely right. A real Sith would have bodied her or she would have manipulated her into becoming her apprentice. Exactly. She would have viewed the entire thing as a dynamic of power, or she would have tempted Rey with a demonstration of what she could do, probably by killing Plutt, thus endearing Rey to her or hell, actually, at this point, she saved Rey's life, so Rey is already sort of endeared to her, or like she would just use this if she was really a Sith. She would use. Ugh. Okay, I'm back. She would use this to manipulate Rey into becoming her apprentice. Like beginning, middle, end.
No. Presumably, Rey will eventually become a Sith in this series.
Oh, that's almost guaranteed.
It'd be the funniest. It'd be the funniest shit if, like, the novel.
Luke will probably remain the same as his Last Jedi counterpart, though.
Yeah, it'd be the funniest shit if like this entire novel series ends with Rey just straight up killing Amorosa. It's just like Rey actually takes the teachings of the Sith seriously. He's just like, wow, I don't have anything else to learn from you, so I'm the master now. Boom.
Yep. But let's be honest, Lily doesn't have that kind of writing talent.
Yes, I enjoyed our lesbian strap-on sex, but I like power more.
In the cockpit, Rey was smiling as she flew the ship, stopping to correct course here and there, and it was nice to have someone friend. Excuse me, damn. Lunch is coming back with force. It was nice to have someone friendly to talk to. Oh, after so much time alone, and Aliana had proven to be quite interesting. BB-8 was right. Having friends was exhilarating. What? She almost couldn't wait to get to Takonda to get more acquainted with Finn. But there was something prodding at the back of her mind. Aliana hadn't wanted her to come. She'd wanted her to stay on the Falcon with Finn, Han, and BB-8. But they'd been having such a good time together, so why had she been so insistent on flying the Fury alone? Was she hiding something? Rey had developed a natural inclination to distrust people over the years. Where was that like 3 chapters ago when this lady appeared? Heard offering you money. Like we can now see that Rey is intelligent enough not to take candy from strangers in a van, but also perfectly happy to take candy from strangers in a van. Everyone had an ulterior motive as far as she was concerned. With Finn, she could see clear as day. Finn had been covertly ogling her in their brief time together. It didn't bother her. In fact, she was more comfortable knowing what Finn's motives were. Aliana, however, couldn't quite read. However much she liked her, not being able to read her made her just that bit anxious. Maybe it was time for another conversation. Over breakfast tomorrow. Okay. Um this is kind of weird. Like the fact that she just drops this in here as a mention of Finn's character, or to try and I guess I don't understand what the point of this is, but like I don't get it. Oh, thank God we're in the last quarter. Aliana liked cooking. Creating something nourishing that could be enjoyed was therapeutic. Putting together ingredients in a certain pattern helped clear her head. She always had affinity for organization and patterns and found them soothing. Even the steady thrum of the engines would put her in a good rhythm. And with how deeply Ray's pleasant company had been affecting her, she needed her head as clear as possible. Over the years, become quite good at turning ration packs into hearty meals with just a few additional ingredients. She was always careful to keep a stock of vegetables on hand as well as seasonings. With just a few extra tools, she could keep an entire platoon of soldiers satisfied. For Ray, who hadn't eaten anything aside from polystarch and veg meat for most of her life, she was making a thick and hearty soup from vegetables and a few slices of veg meat cut up into small pieces. She quite enjoyed watching a soup turn from pot of water into a thick, dark concoction. The way it bubbled and swirled and as everything simmered was quite absorbing. How is this some of the best setting and explanation and character development we've gotten in this entire fic? How? How is this happening? I don't
Apparently,
understand.
apparently she's a vegan too.
Like, yes, I recognize that, but still, though, like all of this gives us actual insight into the character. And yet, I guarantee you, this will be thrown to the wayside in about 2 minutes by something stupid. Like, oh, this character likes to cook. It is a calming meditation for them. Hmm. It is something they enjoy doing. Like, that's actual character development. What is happening here? It's shallow, but it's there and you could build on it. And the fact that it filled the entire ship with a pleasant aroma helped. Ray stepped into the dining room of the ship, all but enamored with the smell of breakfast being made. She had no idea food could smell so good as it did with Eliana prepare prepared preparing. Damn it. A meal. Well, she could spend the rest of her life eating Eliana's cooking. And she will. Because space lesbians. Um yes, absolutely. The drastic when Ray would have been adapted to eating like very little fresh ingredients and mostly like synthesized stuff. Oh yeah. The change would be incredibly it would make her sick very quickly. Like if so I don't know this from experience, but one of my uh coworkers doesn't eat fast food that frequently, but when he was forced to, he felt miserable. Like it was off apparently it was bad. So apparently if you go quite a while without eating fast food and then have some fast food, it's not going to be good for you. You're not going to feel very good. Not to mention that the two of them had no shortage of conversations whenever they sat down to eat. She could listen to Eliana talk just about anything, and she'd be all but enraptured by it. Not just the topics themselves, but how smooth and pleasant Ali's voice was when the topic of conversation shifted to something heavy. It was never wholly unpleasant, which is why Ray was hoping the question she had for Eliana this morning would go over well. After about 10 minutes of waiting, Eliana came in with a tray carrying two large bowls of something steamy. Whatever it was, it smelled absolutely delicious. When she set it down in front of her, she looked at the contents with curiosity. What is it? Soup. It's a food. It's food, but in a liquid form. It's a good way to get a lot of mileage out of leftovers and spare ingredients. Ray prodded the substance with her utensil curiously. Anything that was in liquid form was a scarcity on Jakku. Seeing food this saturated in liquid was intriguing. Taking a spoonful, she cautiously sipped the hot soup. She let out a pleased hum in her throat. Delicious, she said. Blah, she said cheerfully. You sound surprised. Has my cooking not been up to stuff since you arrived? Oh, no, no, no. Oh, it's always good. I was just surprised by. Oh, you're just teasing me. Oh, God. Guilty as charged. This is not how you write banter, by the way. Like, banter should not be cringe. Banter should be mildly amusing at worst. Like if you need good banter writing, Tony Stark interacting with any of the other Avengers during scenes where he's not like where during many scenes in like Civil War and other places, like he banters very, very well. Like, take your cues from Tony Stark. Understand that this is how banter works. It's mildly amusing. It pokes fun at someone else, and then we move on.
Well, maybe don't take too much information from or inspiration from Tony Stark. One of the big problems with the MCU is that there's too much banter.
Mm, true enough.
I mean, yeah, like in Civil War, for example, like the Avengers are split in two, and they're having a serious fight, and there's still banter going on.
I mean, they're still friends.
I don't know, Clayton. If I was beating the shit out of you, would you be cracking quips?
To be fair, at least two, like, he, Tony had, like, the moments of banter in Civil War are done in spots where it's very, very well handled. Like Clayton, Natasha, like Hawkeye and Black Widow, it's established that they know each other. Like they have been co-workers or and friends for a long time. So it makes sense that when they are fighting, they sort of quip at each other because they've done this dance before. Um, Peter is a kid, and his his banter is much more of, "Oh, hello." Like, "Oh, cool, you have this metal arm and you have this metal arm and science and curiosity." Like he's like a motor. He keeps thinking and doesn't stop. What else? What other moments of banter are there? I don't know. I think Civil War does his banter very, very well. I wouldn't say there's an overabundance of it. There's too much of it. There might be some movies where it's too much, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. Regardless, banter should not make me want to like turn off the TV and go like throw myself off a building. This is no. This is not how we do banter. Guilty as charged. Ray reached over and smacked her shoulder. You know I'm new at this, and that's so exploitable. Ray rolled her eyes and took another spoonful of soup to hide her smile. Even her in her Jesus, excuse me. Even in her indignance, the banter between them was always enjoyable. Taking a moment to savor the soup, she considered her response. Perhaps I should bring you back to Jakku with me. I can't imagine going back to simple portions after this. You could always stay on the ship. I could use the company in freelancing. It took her a minute, but eventually the ramifications of what she'd just said registered in what was an increasingly starting to feel like a single solitary brain cell in her skull. Those implications were not lost on Ray is either, who froze mid sip.
Yeah, this is akin to asking your crush to move in with you.
Yeah,
Your crush that you've only known for maybe no more than 48 hours.
yeah. It's just a little weird. Joe, that might be the best. Like that might be the best way to describe this entire scene. Absolutely. Is that what you want? Ray asked, placing her spoon back in your bowl, into her bowl. Do you want me to stay? I mean, if the idea was interesting to you, I guess. I mean, you are good company, and you'll like the ship. And you like the ship, and there would be things to work out first. But I mean, if that's something you wanted to do, Jesus Christ. Ray's mind buzzed with the thought. True, everything about the idea seemed appealing, but she had just got done debating with herself between joining the resistance or going back to Jakku. Now this opportunity presents itself. I'll have to think about that. It seems like a lot of new prospects have been opening up for me these days. Well, the offer's always there if you're looking for work or something. Ileana focused on her bowl, her face warm as she tried to control her rampaging emotions. Ray's brow furrowed as she thought about the idea. Was this Ileana's motive? To get Ray to stay with her? Then why did it seem like there were times when Ileana would rather she wasn't around? Are you sure you want me around for that long? I feel like you'd want your privacy back eventually. I guess. Not really. Maybe. Eliana stared down at her food, internally panicking. She didn't know how to recover from blunders like these, and resolved to just control her sputtering.
Oh god. Lily, don't base your romance writing off of anime.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be cartoony. Plus Japanese people are just have bad social skills in general. Well, maybe not in general, but you get what I mean. Japanese are a bit more introverted than a lot of other countries.
And even if and like what no one speaks this way.
Unless it's a fucking anime.
Yeah, exactly. Like the whole idea that anyone would have this sort of sputtering interaction is sort of weird. All right. Are you all right? Eliana didn't answer as she took another sip of her soup, busying herself with eating to avoid answering questions. Ray frowned. It was clear to her that Eliana was not telling her something. The thought of her keeping secrets from Ray didn't sit kindly. Still, if it was indeed too personal for Eliana to tell someone that, honestly, she's known for a few days, then perhaps she's only known for a few days, then perhaps Ray was wrong for trying to press the matter. Are you okay? You seem distracted. Yeah, I'm just this Aliana tried to find a way to explain herself without getting too specific. I'm always like this around girls. Okay.
No, okay, the first chapter it's established that she's a womanizer.
Oh yeah, big time. Like
She can swoon women into, or she can talk women into getting into bed with her. Sorry, you were saying?
and yet she doesn't with Ray because, oh, Ray is Mary Sue. Ooh. But Joe points out something interesting. Yeah. Wouldn't her emotions be causing things to float? Like, yes, also Joe once again hitting the nail on the head. I didn't even think about that. Like, why the hell would secrets be weird to alien to Ray? She's known Aliana all of 48 hours. Ray tilted her head slightly. She's like, "Really? How come?" she asked with confusion. Now it was Aliana's turn to be confused. She was accustomed to the answer being obvious to most people. In fact, this was the first time in years she'd been in a situation where she would have to had explained herself any further. Because I'm gay? Ray's confusion only intensified. You look more nervous than happy to me.
Ha ha ha.
Desert bound hermit doesn't know what gay is. Fucking god. Aliana sputtered and had to exert a great deal of self-control to keep from laughing. Ray really didn't know. Was it just a term? Just the term or the concept at large she was about to find out. No, Ray, it means I like women. Like the way men do. Wait, you can do that? I had no idea. I thought that was a thing. Wait, you aren't teasing me again, are you? Ooh, no, no teasing here. I like women. Being around them makes me a little more nervous and flustered.
And yet you
Except
could
that,
and yet you can talk them into bed.
Yeah, with almost no issue, I guess.
Yeah, I was trying to imagine like James Bond if he for like the women he actually falls in love with, but he just no, he doesn't start stuttering. He'd still play the same game.
These are adults, and Joe has it right. They're acting like teenagers in some fucking like teen drama. This is actually about on par with some crappy teen drama like Degrassi or Glee.
Well, to be fair, Lily Orchard is a mentally stunted person.
That's
Probably
mean. We shouldn't say that about her.
never mentally matured past junior high.
That's mean. We shouldn't say that about her.
Okay, fine. Okay,
We
fine.
shouldn't allege that someone is mentally incompetent.
Okay. Okay, maybe I'm being too harsh. She never mentally matured past high school. There.
A part of Ray wanted to sigh with relief upon this realization. Such a revelation had to be whatever it was that Eliana was hiding. Having it out in the open felt like a weight being lifted off her shoulders. However, a much larger part of Ray, more focused on the gravity of the revelation in the first place, she absolutely had no idea women could be attracted to other women in that way. She saw nothing like that on Jakku. Granted, she'd rarely seen romance bloom between the scavengers on Jakku, but a few times she'd seen it, it was always the opposite.
Wait, what do you mean opposite?
I don't know. I guess men and I guess she's seen gay men. I
I
guess
mean,
unless
I don't know. I imagine there'd be probably a decent amount of romance. These are people that are stranded on a planet with no way of leaving.
yeah, nothing better to do either. I would find it hard to believe.
Yeah, I mean, if you leave a bunch of random strangers all on a desert island, yeah, some of them are gonna start hooking up.
Hmm.
Cause hey, you're a man, or you're a man, I'm a woman, or you're a gay guy, I'm a gay guy. Let's do it. We're I'm still horny.
Yeah. Ray was silent for a moment, a look of amazement plastered on her face. Alana couldn't help but smirk at how flabbergasted she looked. Did I just shatter your entire worldview a little bit? She said cheekily. Oh, God. This is
Dude.
what social justice warriors think they're they're doing to like young people. Well, they think they're just shattering worldviews when in fact they're just indoctrinating them into lies, into the denial of reality. Like this is what they believe they're doing, and it's not this.
Yeah, I wouldn't really call it worldview shattering. I mean, when I first learned that gay people were a thing, I think I was probably 10, and I didn't have any shattered worldview. I was like, okay, I guess that's a thing people do.
Indeed.
Like at the time I thought it was a little strange because I've never heard of that concept before, but yeah, it's not like I was in denial of it being a thing.
Aliana wanted to laugh, but she also simply sympathized with Ray's ignorance. Jakku was an outer rim world controlled by the Hutt cartels, and they were far less forgiving toward people like Aliana than the Republic. What the Why would they care? No, really, why would the Hutts give a fuck? Like, if so, let me think. So let's think about this. The Hutts live live and breathe crime and money. If you, as a Hutt crime lord, discovered that certain portions of the population were attracted to the same sex, as themselves, my initial thought would be, how are they going to exploit this for money? Because that's what Huts do. They exploit things to gain riches and power.
So, is it trying to imply that the Huts are homophobic?
Yes,
Why and how and why? Like, yeah, you're right. How would that? Why would that benefit them? It's not like they're. It's not like they're like a far right religious organization or anything. They're a fucking crime syndicate.
they're a crime syndicate who would look at who would look at this portion of the population and be like, we can fucking make money off these people.
Hell, I would be
Let's
surprised.
do that.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there are some gay Huts who then have a lot of same-sex slaves.
Or even if they're not, and even if they themselves aren't gay, he providing that service, like, why would they care? There's so many questions as to why the Huts wouldn't like gay people. Still, better off than the First Order and Imperial space, where she would have been executed or conditioned if discovered.
And why would the Empire care?
Why would the Empire care? Do you work? Are
I,
you a worker for the Empire? Do you
th-
follow orders?
yeah,
Yes.
I've heard that in a Star Wars comic, there actually is like an Imperial officer who's a lesbian, openly admits to having a wife. So even in the Disney canon, it's not a big deal. Once again, these are not. This is not a far right religious group or something that would defy traditional family values.
Like, why would
Like
the Empire
you first need to
care?
kind of figure out why certain governments outlaw homosexuality. So like it could be like, yeah, they're a very far right religious organization, or because maybe some I isn't like the reason why China is against it is because it goes against traditional family values.
It also is, an expression of freedom. Being able to love who you want without the state interfering.
Well,
I guess, Joe, that might be how she's come to these conclusions. I just don't understand why, when you really start to examine it, that the Empire or the First Order or the Hutts or basically any Star Wars villain would give a shit about who fucks who.
maybe being rich makes you homophobic. Well, shit, man. Don't tell all the celebrities in Hollywood. It's like half of them are gay.
Or at least bisexual as they're coming out now. Well, it's less common in the Outer Rim, but yeah, in the core worlds, you'll see women and men like me all over the place. Oh, oh, I get it now.
What?
So she's implying basically that in the city, homophobia is like a thing of non-existence, but in rural areas, it's absolutely still a thing and horrifying, and people are conditioned for it.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Are they just gonna visit an outer rim planet and there's a bunch of chiss playing banjos?
possibly.
It's like, yeah, Grand Admiral Thrawn is now like a hillbilly.
Yep. Wow, that would be a sight, wouldn't it? I guess it's a shame. I mean, did you avoid the core worlds? Someone like you seems like you'd have no problem finding a girl. Well, Ray paused, somewhat surprised at her own words. Where did that come from? That was the third time she'd said something like this to Eliana. She still couldn't pinpoint the reason why. Actually, no. Even if I did feel safe going to the core worlds, my eyes usually scare people off anyway. She leaned forward to show Ray her irises. Ray leaned in and got a slightly better look. Sure enough, she could see that Eliana's eyes were crimson red. Oh my god.
Why would they care? There's yeah, in the core worlds there are billions of different alien races.
Yeah,
No one's gonna give a shit about a human with red eyes.
they'll probably just assume that you had a non-human parent at some point.
Yeah, most people are gonna look at that and say, "Oh, you got beautiful eyes." Moving on.
Yeah, like hey, and a person with red eyes would not, you know, be unnoticeable. Like that's the thing. She's just it's so weird. Like, oh, I have bright red eyes. But no one but the person that's been in close proximity with me for at least 2 days at this point in the fic hasn't noticed. They looked hot and fierce like a blaster bolt, and something told her that Eliana could be just as deadly if she wanted to be. Still, when she looked into those eyes, she did not feel fear or concern of any kind. Perhaps that was because she knew those fierce blood eyes belonged to someone kind and gentle. Hot. Well, that's hardly fair. People shouldn't be so easily scared off considering how little they know. You can't judge a freighter by its hull after all. I guess after the Galactic Civil War, people are jumpy about anything that might remind them of the Sith. She said, Eliana
There were
said as she finished her soup.
Okay, during the
Sith,
Galactic Civil War, there were only 2 Sith, and
yeah.
not and one had yellow eyes, and the other one nobody knew what his face looked like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, by the way, Reva existing fucking fucks with the entirety of Darth Vader. Like Darth Vader's character is fucked now. Oh, by the way, thanks Kenobi.
Yeah, so yes, the inner worlds, yeah, they don't have a problem with lesbians, but oh god, ew, you've got red eyes, get away from me.
Meanwhile, there are literal species of aliens that have exclusively red eyes, and some of them fucking glow.
Let's see.
Sith and Dark Jedi can develop red or yellow eyes if they're evil enough, so people just jump to that conclusion. I see. I suppose fear is a powerful tool after all, considering how deeply it seems to affect the galaxy.
Okay,
I don't
so
blame them, honestly. I'm not the only person with red eyes to get this kind of treatment, but considering the things the Empire had done, and then the First Order continues to do, well, there's a reason you don't see any kids named Anakin anymore. Um,
okay, apparently people know that Vader is Anakin Skywalker. Like who the
I
fuck leaked that
guess.
information? And also, if we're going with the EU, there's Anakin Solo.
Like I don't know. I guess it's common knowledge that Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker, a fallen Jedi.
Well,
Right? But
who would
why
be
would
saying?
that be, public information?
Yeah, and very few people knew that, so who would be leaking it? As far as I know, the only people who knew were Palpatine, Luke, and Leia.
And further, what relevance does it have to the general public? Who cares? Ray couldn't suppress a giggle at Eliana's words despite the rather serious subject matter. Yeah, I can't imagine the name Palpatine is very popular either. Oh, ooh, but do you know that what Palpatine's first name was? As Eliana asked, as a mischievous look. on her face. What? Sheev. Ray nearly choked on her own laughter. I know.
Chirp,
Thank
chirp,
God it's
chirp,
over.
chirp.
Shall we read the comments?
Against my better judgment, yes.
All right. I'm imagining young Palpatine introduced himself up to others as Sheev and them all laughing.
Why? It's not really that silly of a name considering the other human names in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, there's a guy named there's a character named Jar Jar, and nobody gives a shit.
Yeah. I love all these interactions between Ray and Allie. Their chemistry is just so good. As much as I found the Force Awakens fun, I seriously wish this was the movie we got. This is post The Last Jedi. How can anyone look at these interactions and be like, these are good interactions? Ugh. This was super cute and gay. That's one less secret Aliana telling Rafe that she finds her attractive. Now we just need the other bigger secret. No. No, I'm done. I retreat. So this was bad. It was bad. Bad chapter. Very bad. Like, the last chapter was probably the best because it crutched off of the movie content so much, but now that we're literally just in no man's land, and the flaws in Lilly Pete's and this other person's writing are coming to the fore. The banter and interaction is clearly based on other forms of media instead of the characters. Like, it's very clear that anime and novels and other possible and potentially, God, I hope not, other fan fiction interactions influence this, which, fine, but it's sort of done without having the character building necessary for it to be done. So it just sort of ends up falling flat, and with Ray and with both being cringe and no having no chemistry between the two characters. But other than that, I think we're just about done here. Do you have anything else to
Nada.
for the audience, Caesar?
Oh wait. Joe Crazy brings up Shaggy. Yeah, that was hilarious. Yeah, apparently Shaggy was originally going to have the actual Shaggy voice, but apparently it was just too goofy, so they had to give him a normal one.
Oh, all right. So that is going to be all for today. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, that's going to
Well,
be all
see.
for today. Thank you all so much for pushing our third video ever. Like, that we've only had 3 break 100 views, and that's really awesome, and I very much appreciate it. So thank you all so much for that. That's and I guess we'll see you next week. Hopefully we'll have something new to cover. It probably won't be the Kenobi thing because I have no intention of watching that. I'm not gonna give Disney my money for crap. But if anything new, or we could just come back here.
Yeah, we can just always use this to fall back on. I couldn't really think of a way to talk about Roe v. Wade for over 2 hours.
Yeah. There is, it's not enough. Honestly, I don't know enough about it, and there's not enough desire in me to be that toxic for 2 hours. So I think this was a good choice. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed watching this. Thank you all again so much for having our third video ever, or to hit over 100 views. Y'all have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time.
Yep, take care.